Jets, Bengals, week 3. Let's preview this one. Hey, what's going on? I'm Matt O'Leary, back with another video. Today I am talking about the New York Jets versus Cincinnati Bengals. The Jets are hosting the Bengals at home in week 3. Before we get started today, I just wanted to mention that you can follow on social media at Matt O'Leary NY. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe to the Just Jets podcast. New episodes drop every single Wednesday. So it is the 1-1 New York Jets. 1-1. How about that? With a chance to go over 500? That's allowed against the 0-2 Cincinnati Bengals. A little bit of a surprise there. The Cincinnati Bengals lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers in week 1. Went down to Dallas. Desperate spot. 0-1. Became 0-2 against the Cowboys without Dak Prescott, which is a little bit surprising. But through 2 weeks, these are how these teams rank. Offensively, the Jets are the 15th best offense in football. How about that? Joe Flacco, 3rd in the league in passing yards. Things you just absolutely love to see. Bengals are 21st. They're struggling a little bit right now. More on that later. The defense, Jets 25, not great. Bengals 16, middle of the pack. So Bengals have the advantage there. The Jets have some work to do against a team that, well, they really like to be able to throw the ball to their wide receivers on the outside. And you hope that Sauce Gardner and company is going to be able to shut that down. But first up, we have the Mojo segment of the week, looking at the Cincinnati Bengals and the New York Jets. Even with the struggles on the Cincinnati side, we see Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are still up over 2% this week. They both see increases there in their stock. It's not surprising. Both are young players. Both are risers. I know that they're struggling, but still probably still a fine time to invest. Not hitting a panic button just yet. As for the big storylines for the New York Jets, Garrett Wilson, we talked about him earlier in the week. He is up big and holding strong around $14. We talked about him earlier in the week. It seems like a prime time to invest. He was up almost 18% this week. That's things that you love to see. And finally, we talked about it. Joe Flacco is 3rd in the league in passing yards right now, but it doesn't really impact him a ton because he's towards the end of his career. He's up less than 1% from the start of the season. So over 2 weeks, just up a little over 1%. So that is our Mojo spotlight of the week. For the Bengals offense, why are they struggling so badly? The offensive line. And they spent a lot of money on the offensive line. They brought in a couple of interior guys in free agency. They brought in Lyle Collins. Jonah Williams was a high draft pick from a few years ago, and it still really hasn't worked. They've allowed, as a unit, 7 sacks in 2 games and 30 pressures. On average, Joe Burrow is getting pressured 15 times per game. Jonah Williams, in particular, struggling mightily right now. Mightily. Hello, Carl Lawson. This is the perfect time for the New York Jets defensive line to come alive. We talked about it on the pod earlier this week. That has to be the strength of this defense, right? You have Carl Lawson. You paid him a bunch of money. Quinn Williams is the 3rd overall pick. John Franklin Myers you gave a contract to in order to be that guy. You traded up for Jermaine Johnson. You drafted Michael Clemens. You have Jacob Martin. Can we please, for the love of goodness gracious, dress Bryce up this week to get after the pass rusher, to get after the quarterback as a pass rusher? The defensive line has to come alive. And we saw it in glimpses last year. The Tennessee game in week 4 is a very good example of that one. They were getting after the quarterback, and that's probably the strongest the defensive line looked. Through 2 weeks, they've been a little underwhelming. Quinnen's been solid. JFM's been solid. Carl Lawson's been okay, but we need these guys to take that next step. You need a 3-sack performance. You need really to get after the quarterback. Like I said, the Bengals are allowing on average 3.5 sacks a game. You can't finish the game with 1 sack on Joe Burrow. That would be a major indictment on this defensive line that's supposed to be so dominant. They have to get better. One area that I'm slightly concerned with is the Jets' run defense. They definitely took a step back in week 2. Nick Chubb, specifically in the second half, ran wild. Can Joe Mixon, who's a pretty good running back in his own right, obviously he's no Nick Chubb, but he's a good running back, can he take advantage of the Jets linebacker core? Because right now, I think that's probably where I put the struggles on. I thought as a complete unit, Quincy, Quan, and CJ Mosley all took a little bit of a step back this past week, which was unfortunate because I thought they played well in week one. But it's not like the Bengals have run for a ton of yardage. I know the offense has struggled, and I guess that goes back to the offensive line struggles, but 133 yards in week one, just 89 yards on the ground the last week. Maybe the Jets could take advantage because I would think, like, obviously you have to know if you're Cincinnati, the Jets struggle against the run. All last year they did. Last week they did. And you have Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, who are a couple of good players. If it were up to me, I'd be trying to run right at this Jets defense. Hold on to the ball and get things right. So is this really the time that the Bengals are going to break out? I don't know. Maybe. I have a couple other predictions too. I think this is finally where we see Breece Hall and Michael Carter impress. I'll get into their stat line predictions later in that segment, but I really think the two of them are going to play really well. Last year was probably Michael Carter's best game of the season. It was against the Cincinnati Bengals, and he was very involved in the passing attack. He was very good as a rusher. He averaged, I think it was over 5 yards a carry. He was very, very, very productive. And I think the two of them, they do a little bit more balance. I think we finally see Breece Hall go over double-digit carries because he looked a lot better. I think he had like 7 carries and 50 yards, something around that, which is impressive. He ran the ball very, very well in week 2 after struggling in week 1. And I think this line, the more that they continue to play and the more reps they get, they will continue to improve. And the last thing, before we get into stat predictions, picks against the spread, score predictions, is can Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed hold up? Really, really tough matchup. You have, obviously, Jamar Chase, who is just on another planet. And then you have T. Higgins, who, I mean, he's a really, really good receiver. He's not, Jamar Chase, but this is a quality receiver who can, cause you some issues. That's probably putting it a little bit on the lighter side. This is a huge test. And in week 1, they were very much so up for the test. They didn't allow anything. This past week, a little slight step back. Amari Cooper was burning them down the field, and that was not just one of those guys. It was a mix of everybody. So it's a really massive test to see if they're going to be able to be good to go in this matchup. So we'll see. Let's get into the stat line predictions. We'll do 4 for the Jets this week. Joe Flacco, we always do the quarterback. I have him 22 of 35. 238 yards and 2 touchdowns, no picks. I think he has, it's a solid day. He's not throwing over 300, which he did in the first 2 weeks, but throwing the ball 35 times, throwing for about 240 yards and a couple of touchdowns. That's really nice. And hopefully this is the last time we see Joe Flacco, because that means that Zach Wilson's back and ready to go in week 4. That'd be, best case scenario for us here. As for the running backs, I want to give you predictions on both. I'm going to say Breece Hall, 12 carries, 103 yards, and a touchdown. I think he has one of his monster runs this week. Long touchdown, like a 50-plus yard touchdown run. He looks so close to finally breaking one. And in week 1, I thought he was apprehensive when trying to hit the hole and wasn't, really moving all that quickly. But this week in particular, against the Cleveland Browns, I thought he hit the hole with a lot more purpose. And I think that finally comes to fruition this week, and he runs for a massive, massive gain. And I have Michael Carter also getting, 12 carries, 103, a touchdown, and also 41 receiving yards for Breece Hall. Michael Carter, 12 carries, so even number of carries, 54 yards, and then an additional 55 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown. I think both running backs get in the end zone. And how could we not talk about the man of the hour, Garrett freaking Wilson? What does he do this week? Maybe not as productive, but still really nice day. I have him 6 catches, 78 yards, and a touchdown. This guy just feels different. I hope he continues to ball out. And who's going to be covering him? I mean, Eli Apple's going to be on either one of Garrett Wilson or Elijah Moore. One of them's got a ball. So without further ado, we're going to get into the picks, which the pick segment of this show, the drill, brought to you by BUSR, the official sportsbook of Matt O'Leary and Y. Sign up using my link, busr.com/Matt, to receive a 100% match deposit bonus up to $1,000 and an additional 25 casino chips. It's a ton of fun. That's where I do all my betting on the New York Jets, and I am going to get in on something this week. I am 0-2 against the spread so far. I'm looking to turn my luck around. Casey is 1-1, so I will do my prediction. The Jets are 5-point underdogs at home to the Cincinnati Bengals on BUSR, and I am taking the Jets +5. I think this is a very, very close game. I think it's a high-scoring game. I think both teams are going to be able to put up points. The Bengals offense has been down for too long. This feels like a get-right spot for them, but I also don't think the Jets are going to roll over and die. I think they carry some momentum over. I think it's a coin flip game. It's really tough for me to predict the Jets upsetting this team 2 years in a row. Can they do it? Absolutely they can. I think it's going to be a good game, but I have it 30-27 Bengals. So, I mean, that would be, I think you sign up for that. If the young guys look good and you hang tight and then, potentially fingers crossed, you have Zach Wilson coming back with a chance to pull even at 2-2 against the Pittsburgh team that, I mean, we don't know how they're going to play this week against Cleveland, but you got to think a Pittsburgh team that's beatable. They're not, the Pittsburgh of old when you're going in and you got to face Big Ben and Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown and all those guys. So I'm going to go Jets +5. I think they can win, but if I had to do a score prediction, I'm probably taking the Bengals with a slight edge. I just don't see them going 0-3. I think they're too talented to go 0-3. So I hope I'm wrong, but I am taking the Jets with the points. Let's see Casey's pick. Oh, Casey, you are on the Cincinnati Bengals. She's back to old reliable, going left, loves the away teams. Dog just loves I was going to say dogs, but the Bengals are very much so not dogs. They're 5-point favorites. She likes the road favorite this week. So let me know in the comments down below who you guys like. What are some of your predictions for this week for the New York Jets? Do we see the offense continue to play well? Does the defense get back on track? Let me know. Maybe you want to talk about a player. Sound off in the comments or on social media. I'm Matt O'Leary. Thank you so much for tuning in. Subscribe, leave a comment. I appreciate the support. Talk to you next time.